today on Keep Classical Weird, our first podcast collaboration with the fantastic people at Sound Mind. Next time I'll choreograph the opening a little more.
Oh, I'm introducing you now. This is awesome. Okay, we're off to a really good start. All right.
Welcome, friends, to episode 41 of Keep Classical Weird. I am your host, Casey Bozell, and today I'm speaking with two members of the nonprofit Sound Mind, whose mission is to end the stigma surrounding mental health in the classical music community. There was an article posted a number of years ago about the happiest and lowest stress careers that one can have, and this misinformed writer included classical musician on the list. Well, the internet let them have it. It's certainly a career where there's pressure from all sides. Pressure from an audience, pressure from a management, pressure from teachers, from students, and many more to be the best musician one can be. But as cliche as this sounds, classical musicians tend to be their own worst critics. It's more often than not the voice inside our head telling us we're not measuring up, telling us that we need to work harder, adjust faster, and practice better. And these struggles are not something we're really ever encouraged to share openly. This is where Sound Mind is such a great idea. They have a mission to encourage open and honest conversations in the classical community, firmly believing that this will actually make us better musicians. And I couldn't agree more. I was thrilled to sit down and talk with Sound Mind Executive Director Alex Hoffmann and board member Ben Manis. We talk about self-identity, career goals, and I end up sharing a bit about my journey as a working musician mother. Enjoy.
So, you know what I always ask on my show is if you can introduce yourself and how you identify yourself in the world of music.
Great.
Why don't you go first, Ben?
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Ben Manis. I'm a conductor. I am used to be a cellist. I still play sometimes. I joined Classical Musicians Roundtable last summer of 2020. And it has been a wonderful experience being there and sort of finding the intersection of my love of classical music and also my sort of passion for talking about mental health and issues that affect all of us and trying to do what we can to make everybody's lives better. So I'm very happy to be here and happy to be here with you, Casey.
Likewise. It's so nice to meet you and see your face, finally. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, after weeks of not seeing your face.
I know. It's communication is, what even is it right now? Alex, how about you?
Hi. So I'm Alex. I play flute. I am a founder of Classical Musicians Roundtable. We founded it back in October of 2019, and it's been a really amazing journey. It's really just blossomed into something that I didn't really expect in so many ways, and I'm just really excited that we're still going and growing in a lot of ways too, and that really excites me right now.
That's awesome. And congrats. That's fantastic. I am going to take a leap, a huge assumption here, and say that when both of you started in your journey in music school, this is perhaps not what you had in mind to end, not in a good or a bad way, but I'm assuming that this was not your goal.
That would be correct. Yeah, I didn't think I'd be trying to found a nonprofit at 26 years old, certainly. Yeah, I mean, the dream for so long was and still is in many ways to play in a professional orchestra for sure.
That makes sense. And was that your goal? Were you I got to get in a professional orchestra, therefore I got to go get a degree in music, therefore I got to go to this school? Did you kind of reverse engineer it like that?
Yeah, a little bit. At first I wanted to be a high school band director, and I was like, I'm going to have my own marching band. This is going to be amazing.
Yes.
And then I got to I got to my undergrad and I was like, oh, wait, I really love performing and I still love teaching. I still got an education degree and I still teach, but I just learned that performing was where I really wanted to go full time.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
I think you'd be a great high school band teacher, Alex. For the record.
Ben. Thank you so much.
Were you like a marching band? Were you drum major?
Of course I was. And
of course you were.
I did 2 years of college marching band as well. Just loved it. It's so fun.
I find I'm married to a tuba player, and I find that there's a sharp divide in a view of college marching band, and either you adored it or you endured it until your requirement was done.
True. That's so true. Definitely adored it on my end. I did it voluntarily. There was no requirement. I wanted to be there. Yeah. Loved it. Go Cats.
That's so cool. Go Cats. Yeah, Alex and I discovered we both went to Northwestern at different times. So Ben, what about you? You were like, you're in high school, you're getting ready for college. You're like, I want to do this, so I should do this. And now you're here. So how did that journey go for you?
Well said. Yeah, I just played cello. I don't really remember like not playing a musical instrument in my life. And, I wanted to be a musician, and going to music school was just like what you did in order to become a musician. So I never even really seriously considered doing anything else. I just figured that was the way. And I had no real aspirations at that point of becoming a conductor. I had some scores that I had gotten and sort of thought I knew what I was doing at looking at them. But that wasn't really, it wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to music school and study cello so I can be a conductor. And it wasn't until I got to where I was in my undergrad and had played in a string quartet for a few years that I loved. I loved playing in string quartets, still do. And, we sort of stopped playing together for personal reasons. Those things always end for personal reasons.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was after that, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be a conductor. And it was easy. It wasn't, for some people, it's sort of like a big identity switch to go from being an instrumentalist to being a conductor. And that can be a big sort of mental hurdle and change to get used to. And for me, it wasn't, because I don't think I ever really identified super strongly as a cellist. It was the instrument that I played, but that was sort of it. It was just a question of what was going to be the best way to sort of connect with music. And for me, that turned out to be conducting. And so it was an easy shift.
Okay, that's interesting, because that's, and I've talked to lots of conductors before that sometimes it was a really easy shift, like things kind of fell into place and they're like, oh, this is, like you said, this is where kind of I connect with music the best. This is where I can express the best. So Alex, you mentioned that you had kind of a transformation from education to performance focus. Was that an easy shift for you?
I think, once I got to Northwestern and was playing in the ensembles there, I really just fell in love with performing. I really did. I looked forward to every single performance, every single recital. And I was like, it's that adrenaline rush after performing, while you're performing. It's very exciting. And I wanted to chase that. And I continue to chase that even now. So I think, it wasn't necessarily an easy shift. I mean, I had times when I wanted to drop my education degree entirely, because it's a lot of extra work. And, it's funny, my dad was always like, just get the degree, just do it anyway. You're not going to regret it. And I don't regret it. I loved student teaching. And like I said, I still teach all the time. And I think getting that degree has made me just like a better overall musician. So I don't think it wasn't always an easy decision, but I think it was the right decision at the end of the day. I think I can't picture myself teaching in a public school now. I think I'm where I'm supposed to be. And, Ben, it's so funny that you talk about maybe not wanting to be a conductor or thinking you were going to be a conductor until you were an undergrad, because when we were in youth orchestra together, senior year, I remember you getting up in front of the orchestra and conducting everyone. And I took pictures of it because I was like, look at Ben go. He's so good at this.
Oh boy. I mean, that was my first time ever conducting an orchestra was our high school youth orchestra. But at that time it was like, oh, this is so cool. Like I have this crazy opportunity to actually do this. It wasn't like, yeah, I'm going to like dedicate myself to this. No, I was still went to music school as a cellist and thought that was what I was going to do.
Sure. Oh, that's funny though. It's the seed was planted earlier than you knew.
I guess so. Who knows? Who knows with this stuff?
That's fantastic. I love that. I've found that, at least with my own personal music career, maybe yours is different, that I've had the opportunity to do lots of little different things and dip my toe into lots of little avenues for both music education and music performance. I, too, have had the opportunity to conduct a little bit because I directed an ensemble at a university for 10 years. But I mean, I called it flapping. I did not identify myself as a conductor in any way. I identified myself as somebody who was like trying to get these kids over the finish line because it was a very small music program. And
hey, it's not so different whether they're kids or adults, you know. Did you enjoy it? I mean, did you feel like it added some sort of perspective to what you were doing or made you see things from a different way, something like that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely loved it. It was interesting to be caught in between, like feeling like I really didn't have a lot of skills to complete the job, but also feeling like it was so helpful to everything else that I was doing, kind of this in between place. One of the last concerts that we did there, I was conducting an ensemble of everybody who was in the music department, not just my own chamber orchestra. And that was a choir and a chamber orchestra and a set of handbells and an organist who was at the back. It was just this huge thing, and I had a ball doing it. And, you know, I left the podium and I was like, was that good? I don't know. That was really fun though. So.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I have always found that that being a conductor has so informed the way that when I occasionally play in orchestra now, it has totally changed how I operate and what I think about and all of that. But I totally identify with what you're saying. I mean, especially if, you know, the first however many years of doing it, if you don't have a whole lot of experience, you get what we call podium ears, where you're up there and you are waving your arms and people are playing, but you somehow cannot hear anything that's happening because it is just information overload that's happening. And at least for me, some people, I guess this may not be true for, but for me, it took me a long time to be able to actually use my ears when I'm conducting. I found that to be really hard.
I'm not sure some conductors ever get there.
No comment.
Just given I've worked with a lot.
It's like I have a
so
job
that's
to
great.
maintain.
That's great that you got there. Mazel tov.
Well, I would not claim to have gotten anywhere, but just to be continually working on it. Let's put it that way.
I have one more question too about this whole thing. I'm not even sure I can answer this for myself, but I found that most music students / music professionals reach a certain point where they realize that they can stop and look around and be like, oh, you know what? Nobody quite knows how to do this. You know, it's not just me. That's the fraud in amidst of all of these experts who can do it better. Like everybody's just trying to do it. Unless you all haven't reached that point yet, and I just like lifted a veil for you. But I found that for myself, it was very freeing and liberating to reach a point. I guess it's happened kind of a couple times in a couple different ways where I go, oh, everybody else is worried about the same stuff that I am. They're expressing it in different ways, or maybe they have slightly different like technical struggles, but we're all actually trying to make it through the same thing. I found that to be a really freeing experience, both for me personally and musically. Do you identify with that kind of and when did that happen for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in Civic for 3 years now, and I got in my first year as a fellow, but I got in late. And I only got accepted as a fellow because somebody left last minute and decided the schedule wasn't going to work for them. I was only going to be an associate member originally. And so I felt like my whole first year that I just got in on a fluke, right? That I had only gotten there just by chance. And so that whole first year, like, so much imposter syndrome was going through my head. And I think especially over the last 3 years, being out of school and being in a training orchestra and a fellowship program, like, you learn everything you just said about how we're all kind of making it up as we go. And then I think I've also just learned a lot about my own worth, and feeling confident in myself and what I have to offer, which has taken a lot of time and a lot of therapy, but I'm not there yet, but I'm definitely getting there. So I absolutely relate to that. Yeah.
Awesome. How about you, Ben?
Oh boy. It's hard to sort of sit there and think about it in those terms. I mean, especially because we're in an industry in which everybody who makes it through a different path and a different route. And so that's sort of evidence for, as you said, Casey, for no one really knowing what they're doing. And I think, one of the best pieces of advice I got was that making it in this industry is about 70% relationships with people and maybe 25% luck and maybe 5% skill, like actual musical skill. And those numbers may be off a little bit, but I don't think they're off, frankly, by that much. And so, and I think the luck thing is even more than that. And when I talk to conductors who have quote made it or have big careers, I mean, I don't think that I have made it, but if you looked at me 4 or 5 years ago and said, okay, 4 or 5 years from now, you're going to have this job and you're going to be doing this and whatever, I'd be like, wow, that's freaking great. But here I am, and now I'm looking at the people who are the next level, and I think, oh God, if only, So I think that's a big aspect of it.
Yeah, I identify with that hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how about you, Casey?
So, yeah, I've had 2 kind of big leaps in my own career where that kind of happened for me. And one was right when I managed to get when my real first professional audition, my second year of grad school. And that was when I got the job with the Portland Opera. And that was a huge, gaining traction point for me of realizing like, oh, I'm in the midst of a whole bunch of other like amazingly talented classmates. And the imposter syndrome was real high. Mm-hmm. But that was something that nobody else from my school was taking that audition. It was, more of a regional audition. It was just kind of an area of the country that I was really interested in. And so when I came back, it was finally something that I did during grad school that was just me and that I like set off on my own. And I was like, oh, we all get to make our own choices here. We all get to traverse our own road. So that was a really big step up for me. And then this whole first year of, one of my first gigs with the Oregon Ballet Theater, which is another orchestra I play with here, my stand partner was this guy who came in every day and reeked of alcohol. Every time, just the smell was overpowering. And I'm 24 years old and sitting in this orchestra. I'm like, well, I guess I'm grown up now. I guess this is what people do here. I have not seen this individual since that particular production. I think they have moved on. But yeah, so that was a bit of a wake up call of, the safety net's taken out, but you already have the skill to kind of traverse your own way. And then as a bit of an added transition here, my second real point of clarity was when I got pregnant. And my musicality and my musical priorities really shifted and got way better, in my own opinion. because my perspective on my own priorities, my own individual priorities was changing. And so I found kind of a new freedom in my own artistic expression that I hadn't before. That was the big good thing that came out of it. There was a lot of like, it's been quite a quite a journey fraught with a lot of stuff along the way, but I'm so grateful that that's been like the musical result of it.
Can you talk maybe a little bit more about how those priorities shifted? Obviously you had a child you had to care for, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, I don't know how graphic you want to go here. But I'll just talk and you can let me know, like, ease up. So when I got pregnant, my pregnancy was not super easy. But it was, when I was performing while pregnant, I found was like kind of a really magical time. And that I was able to, think about, well, I've got this child growing inside of me. And so the amount of mental energy that I had of like, make sure this is perfect, make sure you know where you are, make sure you're well prepared and whatever. Part of that necessarily had to be taken away where I was thinking like, okay, am I getting enough sleep? Am I getting enough water? Am I getting enough exercise? Did I check my blood sugar today? I had gestational diabetes. So there was a lot of other things that were prioritized there just to make sure that like this person was growing in a good way. I accepted gigs all the way up until 3 weeks before her due date, thinking that was giving myself enough of a buffer. And then 4 weeks plus 2 days before her due date, my water broke and I had to go in and be induced. So that was fun. I had to call all over town. I was in the hospital. I was admitted. They said, let's see if you start contractions on your own, but if not, we're going to have to induce you because that's what you do at this point in time. And so before all of that, I was in the hospital waiting for stuff to kind of happen. And I was texting and calling everyone I knew. I had a concertmaster gig that somebody had to fill in for. And fortunately, the conductor of it was a good friend of mine, and his partner started calling all over the place to try and find. And he texted me later and he said, I'm sorry, I think everybody in the Portland metro area now knows you're having a baby because I've texted every violinist I know. And they eventually found someone and it was fine.
Good.
But yeah, that was an added layer that I was like, oh, I guess I'm not making it for this gig.
Wow. There's so much to get into there. You said you left yourself about a 3-week buffer period before her due date, but then of course you wound up being induced even before that while you still were taking gigs. So what, were you feeling pressure to keep going and keep performing even though you were 8 months pregnant at that point?
Oh my gosh, yes. When I got pregnant, the biggest fear that I saw, not an unfounded fear either, based on what I had observed, is that my career would suffer. Mm-hmm. That was my number one fear. And so, no, I didn't share on social media that I was pregnant. I didn't tell anybody that I was pregnant. I was actually a finalist for a job that I actually ended up winning out at the Coast. And my trial concert for them, I was 5 months pregnant. And it was still, my body was in a shape where there was like plausible deniability. So some of my friends in the orchestra knew just because they knew me, but the conductor did not know. And I did not volunteer that information. I kept it under wraps for as long as I could. And I kept accepting work for as long as I could. And when I did say like, I need this, there was a ballet production in March that I needed off. And so I said, I only emailed the personnel manager, said, hey, take me off the roster, keep this between us. Like I kept it very quiet because I didn't want people to think, oh, well, she's going to be having a baby, so I'm not going to call her for gigs for a while. Because, I'm sure you both know this too. Once you feel like you're taken off the list, it's very hard to put yourself back on that list.
Yeah. And the momentum, any momentum that you can get in that world is so hard to come by and impossible to lose, or at least that's the way it feels.
that's the way it feels. The pressure is intense to keep every single connection you have and to keep, like you said, the momentum going. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what really interested me about everything you just said is just how you were talking about the importance or the priority you put on taking care of yourself, which is just like, it's funny that, we don't necessarily think about those really important things like getting enough sleep, all of those good things until it's absolutely necessary. So that really stuck out to me in your story.
Yeah, that was not something that I was prioritizing for myself at all beforehand until the child was there. So yeah, it was kind of an intense time and go around, and when she actually was here after she was born, I got a last minute call for a gig. She was about 3 weeks old, which 3 weeks postpartum, you're not, at least I was not qualified to do anything really, much less perform a concert. But it was, I was going to be a ringer for like a local university orchestra. They just needed extra people. It was going to be all movie music, all John Williams stuff that I had played before. So I was like, oh, what a perfect way to get my feet wet and to remind people that I'm still around, because I've now been out of the game for 3 weeks and which,
right.
What? Anyway, but that's where my head was. And so I went, and I forgot the first day, to bring a cushion for my chair. And so it was a really, really physically uncomfortable rehearsal. Because again, just giving birth to a baby 3 weeks ago. So, but I didn't really feel like I could share that with anyone, because that's like not, we're taught, leave your personal problems at the door in order to create your art, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of suffered there in a lot of pain and tried to focus on the notes. And it was not a very good performance because I hadn't touched my violin in a few weeks. And, but, I felt proud of myself at the time, because I was like, all right, I'm still in the game. I still got this. People can still depend on me. And yeah.
So after you had your daughter, right?
Yes.
Daughter, yes. So obviously that is a huge change in your identity as a human having a child.
Yeah.
How did that affect your identity as a musician and sort of the intersection of all of that?
Yeah. That was a strange process to go through. I might still be going through it, but not as intensely as I was, because I think when we first enter freelance life, we're taught to be very self-dependent. We're taught to be like, you go out and make the connections, you go out and send your resumes, you go out and get the jobs, form the relationships, as you said, because so much of it depends on that. Make sure that you're killing it at every single little gig, because you never know who's around listening to you that could get you something else down the line, right? So we become very self-reliant and very self-organized. And I still had that self-reliance and self-organization. And all of a sudden, there was a person in my life who needed everything from me and had no communication skills. With which to tell me all of the stuff that she needed. She's a great communicator now. But I was trying to figure out in between gigs how to like breastfeed. And that's not something that you go in and step by step learn. There are no like Suzuki book methods for breastfeeding. You have to go in again, and it's a team sport, but your other teammate has no communication skills to let you know what they're having trouble with. And so it's intense. I probably did it for longer than I should have for my own mental health, but I was like really determined, and it took me 6 weeks to get her actually breastfeeding dependably. And so in all of that, I was trying so desperately to hang on to this sense of self-reliance. And there was really no sign that I had to. I had so much love and support from my family, from my friends, from my community. They were just wrapped me in such love and support, and I was not seeing it for a while because my sense was that I had to really push forward on my own. And so it took me a long time to kind of say, oh, okay, yeah, you can watch my baby during rehearsal. Or, okay, yeah, I will take I'll take your dinner. Or, any variety of things that we're just used to kind of checking off because we're our own, like, fully formed business in a way as a person. So that's still something that I'm working with, is how much help do I accept? How much help do I need? And also, how do I really role model myself for my daughter? Because I want her to have a good balance of interacting with her community, but also being self-reliant enough that she can also push forward and do whatever she wants to do with her life.
Wow. There's again, so much there.
Yeah.
So how, because so much of one of the things that we talk about a lot at CMRT is this idea of holding space both for each other and for yourself. And a big aspect of that, at least to me, is how you show kindness towards yourself. And part of that is, realizing, for instance, that it's okay to accept help from this person and food from this person and all of that, just as you were saying. And so have these things that you've learned from having these experiences with your daughter and the intersection of being a mother and a musician, how has that affected your relationship with yourself in sort of all ways?
Yeah, that's, I did realize way after the fact that I was suffering from postpartum depression, which, go figure, after all of this, all of these events to have happened. So therapy has been a huge help in my life, both for myself and actually for me and my husband too. It was a big shift for him too. I'm not sure he had as much of an identity crisis, but I think he saw me in a different way, just as I was seeing myself in a different way. And so we needed some help navigating that. So talking to somebody about that has been wonderful. It's been really enlightening to see that I have been, I don't know, not prioritizing the wrong things, but thinking that I always need to be doing something, something to help me achieve my goal. But part of that goal is being a whole person. You're going to be a better musician if you're a whole person. You don't always have to be sitting there. Maybe I do need to play an hour or two of video games today because
Amen.
that's going to relax my mind so that when I practice later, I'll be really into it and I won't be banging my head against a wall because I can't get this one thing. So and I've also mastered the art, just given my lifestyle right now, of the 10-minute practice of finding the 6 measures that are driving me nuts and playing them again and again and again and again and again. And then they're wonderful when I have to go into the gig. And that's awesome. A form of practice. I never looked at that before because, when you're in school, you have massive amounts of time. You want to look at the full thing. You want to dissect it fully. I don't have that anymore. I got 15 minutes in between my students and then I gotta pick my kid up from daycare. So that's what has to happen. But I've found that the quality, both of my performing and of my my improvement as a musician, hasn't gone down. I think it's the opposite. I think it's actually gone way up, and my career, despite my fears, is doing great. I was joking with my husband. I was like, well, shoot, we should have a second kid and then I'll have an international career. So they turn out to be unfounded and it's so I'm mostly, I want to say, on the other side of that huge event. And I am so grateful that this is where I'm at in the journey, both as a musician and as a person.
Wow. That's so amazing to hear, Casey. Yeah, hopefully we'll see you on the international stage in a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Well, this has been so great. It's so wonderful to talk to you. This is the first sort of collab podcast that we have ever done. So thanks for making it so easy. I hope we can do some more with you.
I would love that. This has been so great. I can't wait to feature y'all on my feed too. This is fantastic.
And that's our show for today. My deepest thanks to Alex Hoffmann and Ben Manis. It's been such a pleasure to get to know them. You can find out more about their organization at soundmindmusician.org. Our theme music is composed by not dead composer Thomas Barber. Check out more of his stuff at thomasbarber.com. Web development support is provided by Tina at citybeautifuldesign.com. Keep Classical Weird is created and edited by me, Casey Bozell. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Stay safe and stay weird.